A big hello to all of our Facebook followers who are joining us on our UNESCO Facebook page. I'm George Papagiannis. I'm the Director of Media Services here at UNESCO. And it's a pleasure for me to be with you again as we try to bring to you those people who are joining with us to make a difference in our mandate, who give us visibility, who provide, I guess, exponential treatment to the work that we do. We need those people who are sympathetic, empathetic, and also passionate about UNESCO's work. And today we're marking the day, the International Day for the Elimination of Racism. This day takes its origins from the 1960s, in 1960 in particular, when 69 South Africans protested against the pass law, which was an identity law, and they were cut down during a peaceful demonstration. 6 years later, the UN General Assembly decided that this day would mark the day for us to remember their sacrifice as they fought against racism in the structure of apartheid, which, of course, has gone by the wayside. I'm joined by a very important advocate for tolerance, for diversity, for understanding, and that's Dr. Rita. Rita, yeah, now I'm giving away my New York, my New York moment. I have an Aunt Rita, Dr. Rita Itzhak Ndiaye, who is a human rights expert from Hungary, has been working on various civil society and in the multilateral field, as well as with the government of Hungary. She is a former UN Special Rapporteur on minority issues. You worked in that area from 2011 to 2017. And currently, you're a member of the UN Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. You were also just with us earlier this afternoon for a wonderful discussion that we had here at UNESCO on this issue, and we're now kind of bringing it to you in a bit of a shorthand, you might say, through our Facebook Live opportunity with you. Welcome, and thanks so much for being with us. It's my pleasure. So I'm going to say something to kind of get us started where I think it's where you would speak to us from a very personal experience. Your mother was is Roma, and so you are half Roma. And I wonder what it was like for you growing up. And was that something that you had to deal with? And how did you deal with it?
Should I hold it? Okay, thank you. It's an interesting question because I said my mom is of Romani origin and my father is from an ethnic Hungarian family, but from former Czechoslovakia. So on one side, there was a Roma identity. On the other side, there was a very strong Hungarian ethnicity, an identity. And I grew up in this mixed family. And for a very long time, being Roma meant to me that I was talented in music and dance, and I was singing from I was 3 years old when I started. And my mom always told me that it's a beautiful thing because my heritage is something really valuable and positive. But then I think I was around 6 or 7 years old when I started tasting the bitter side of belonging to a minority community. I remember when I liked a boy and I went home from school and then he just called me gypsy. But in a way, it was not the word, but it was the tone. And then the way he called me gypsy, and then I think he also put another words to it. And my nickname that time was chocolate and shoe polish. In Hungarian, it's boxos. It's the shoe box that you use to, for your black shoes
Was this a nickname in the family?
No,
in the school.
I didn't take it bad. I'm like, okay, I'm a bit more Creole. My skin was a bit darker, so I didn't take it bad until the day that this boy called me gypsy. And then he said something else. So I ran home and I told my mom that I was called by this and I was hurt. And then my mom asked me that, do you want me to change my name? Because she has a very typical Romani name. So if I announce her name, everybody knows that I am from a Roma background. And I told her no. If she fought her life with this name and she went through all these challenges, then I don't want to escape the fight. And I want to fight my life with this name. And then I think the first big shock was when I was 21 years old. I worked for a company in Budapest. I was a university student at the law school. I spoke 2 languages. and they fired me. And when I asked the secretary of the company why, they actually told me that because it was too shameful for the company to be represented by a Roma woman, so they had to get rid of me. And that was an eye-opening experience, and that was actually my inspiration to become an activist, to protect minorities and to fight against racism. So it was a bad experience for me, but I have to say that at the end of the day, it was really my inspiration, and I'm actually grateful to this company and the boss who fired me, because he opened my eye and he made me really, I think, a true fighter for equality.
But did he do that on purpose, or I mean, was he just? What was the motivation? Do you think, did he want to inspire you, or is he just basically giving you your exit visa, so to speak? I'm going to hand you the microphone because my technical support tells me it's looking a bit awkward for me. So,
yeah, no problem. No, I don't think he had good intentions. He really genuinely believed that if the company is represented by a Roma woman, it would bring us bad reputation. And so it was told to me by the secretary, not by the boss. And interestingly, I worked for this company for a while, and the boss didn't know my origin. But once he asked me and I told him, this is when I became a problem. And this is when I was told that actually my services are not anymore needed.
Your activism, obviously, from the story that you've told us, comes truly from within. It is part of the blood that runs through your veins, and so you've taken your activism to some of the highest levels of the international community, but you also see a purpose for engaging with people, and you do it very actively and very precisely on social media. What attracted you to social media, and what is the double-edged sword that you face when you are engaging on social?
I mean, I think definitely what we all see, the benefit of social media is that you can build a network of people who can think with you, work with you, act with you, and support you. And I think also the opposite side is true, that you can also join platforms that normally you would not join, or you would not have the chance to get familiarized with them. And so I mean that you can now easily get access to information and views and discourses by the far right if you want. You can easily follow any political party that you don't agree with, just because you are curious like I am and you want to understand what they think, why they think, what they say, so you can challenge them. And I use social media for both. So I use them to reach people who are my allies and who naturally would work with me, hopefully in the future, and who share with me interesting articles and researches and others. But I also use social media to try to understand the so-called other side and to see how I can fight against racism, how I can fight against prejudices, stigmatization, and what are the words, what are the patterns that those people use that I would not be in contact with normally.
Dr. Rita Itzhak Ndiaye is our guest on Facebook Live this afternoon here in Paris. It may not be in the afternoon wherever you are, but it is an opportunity for us to honestly engage in a very, very good conversation with Dr. Itzhak Ndiaye about the issues that we're confronting and how we confront them. And you talked about what you're doing now in order to engage with the community online, but it isn't always pleasant. You've been out there fighting for this, but there's an organized opposition out there, and it's not a friendly opposition.
Yes, it's true. Once you're on social media, and if you're an active public person, I think you just need to get ready and grow a thick skin, because not everybody who will write to you will be sympathetic to your views and to your actions. And in my case, I have been a target of some campaigns, some hateful campaigns, because of my activism. And I gave an example just recently about the time when I spoke up against Black Pete, which is a cultural tradition in the Netherlands. And then that was a moment when I was really kind of targeted by hundreds and hundreds of people who really didn't agree with me. But of course, the discourse was personal, it was racist, sexist, and I was attacked on every level. And for me, the problem that I faced that time is that my public wall was full of hateful messages by these so-called hate mongers. But those who were sympathetic, those who felt frightened, those who also took my side in this debate, decided to write me private messages because they were afraid to appear with their name and picture on the public surface. So if you visited my page that time, you would see hundreds of hateful messages that were just out there. And so you could easily get the impression that this is the majority of people and this is the majority opinion at the moment. What you couldn't see was the hundreds of other messages written in a very genuine, honest way, really sharing personal stories, but only with me. And I had no means to actually put them also online because I also wanted to protect the identity of these people who asked me to keep them anonym. And that was the danger, and that's the danger with social media, that I realized that so many times you have the hate mongers who are the loudest. And so they would just target a person or a page and appear and be organized. So the visitors would get a very wrong impression that this is the public opinion and this is the majority opinion, whereas it's not true. But you might have hundreds of other people who are silent, who are afraid, and who just decide not to put their opinion because they feel that it doesn't mean that much, or that they are afraid that they would be recognized and they would suffer of the consequences. And this is why I'm somebody who always tries to inspire people to be more outspoken on social media, to take an action and not to be discouraged by those few who are loudly standing up against the values that I think here we all share.
Well, I mean, this is a perfect opportunity for me to share our hashtags, right? I mean, this is what I should be doing when we're talking about social media. And we have several hashtags that we're communicating on, and hope that you'll be sharing your thoughts with us as well, as you hear a very inspiring personal story, but also a story of activism and of pursuant of change. Hashtag fight racism. Hashtag it starts with me. One of my favorites, I have to say. Hashtag stand up for the number 4. Did I put up 3 fingers? I'm a little tired. Stand up for human rights, the number 4. These are some of the hashtags that we're using, and we want you to share your thoughts and engage with us. I mean, we're open to a dialogue, and we think it's a very important part of how we reveal a way forward that is a rising tide that raises all ships. You are talking about hate speech. So when it comes to hate speech, it's a very charged debate. You have people who are very much with no barriers on freedom of expression, that we should be, there are limits, of course. There's the famous Supreme Court decision of you can't yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. That's not protected speech. But and I'm talking about the United States now in terms of that interpretation. But where do you see the boundaries for hate speech? And do we have a model that might have global relevance?
Yes, I am somebody who actually defends the importance of having hate speech regulation. And it comes from the recognition that hate speech doesn't only affect the minority target communities. Of course, they would be hurt and they would suffer. But it also affects the majority communities, the society at large, who will get used to this kind of language, who will internalize it and normalize it, and after a while, they will take it as it is. And so that's why I think it's very important that we keep in mind the consequences for the society at large of hate speech. Now, I don't want to be too legal because I don't know our audience, but I think it's important to state here that there are 3 categories of hate speech. One must be prohibited. And this is clearly in the Genocide Convention, the Rome Statute. This is incitement for genocide. That must be prohibited, there's no question. The second category is that may be prohibited. And this is when for public moral or because of somebody's reputation, you have to actually get sanctions for hate speech. And there are situations when maybe something is hurtful, but it's not hate speech, and you just have to swallow it. Like, this is when people call me gypsy on the street in a bad tone. You know, it doesn't feel good, but I have to accept it because it's not hate speech. It doesn't tell people, like, you know, this is a gypsy woman, you must go and burn her house, because that's different. And when we talk about sanctions because of hate speech, it's important that we look into the context. Where does it happen? The intention of the speaker. who is the speaker? Does the speaker has the potential to reach audiences and actually make them do something? And so when you take all of this into the picture, then you can decide whether there are criminal, civil, or administrative sanctions. But I think it's important that we just don't let people talk as they want when they have a message of hate, because we see where it led in the past, and I think we don't want to have those consequences again.
Can we envision a future without racism? And if we can, what are the steps that we take? And while you're answer that question, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to run over to the table and bring us the placard of our hashtag, so that you and I can hold it up at the end, so that everybody can see us and have that as a lasting and important reminder of participating and, you know, standing up for human rights, to stand up for human rights, to fight racism. It starts with me. These are all very, very important aspects of what we're trying to do. So, give us a glimpse of how we get to a future without racism.
I don't think we will have a future of racism. Without racism, as we won't have a future without crimes. I mean, there are things that are just with us, but I think what we need to know and decide is how we manage it. And we definitely need strategies. We need strategies in an ethical, cultural, intellectual, educational, and legal way. But what I would like to say now, because we are on social media, is to our viewers to try to start building a critical mass of anti-racist people on social media. And what I mean is that however frustrating and tiring it is, when we see hateful comments, we must start posting the counter arguments. And it's not because you want to convince the other side, because sometimes you can't, but it's just to show the visitors of that page or of that article or whatever, that there are other viewpoints, to encourage people to see that they are not alone. Those who want harmony and peace and who believe in our equality and our equal values should see that there are people who are saying the same, who are in the same community. Because if you leave the hate mongers dominating a page, then you will discourage those who think otherwise. And then you can easily have the false impression that our societies are just getting more, extreme and intolerant. And this is not the truth. So if I could encourage all our viewers today, that this is the action that you must take, at least from now on, to be active, to get into arguments, not to tire, take a big breath, go there and explain your values, explain why you believe in the dignity and human rights of everybody and in equality. And with that, I think we must build this critical mass of anti-racist people, and we must plant the ideas of common values and our common shared human peace that we all want to see.
I can't thank you enough. Dr. Rita Ichak-Ndai, who has been not only a participant in an earlier panel that we had here at UNESCO, but who also has joined us here on Facebook Live with pleasure for us as well. As I'm wrapping things up, though, I'll give you that one to hold, and I'm going to put this one here, and I just want to emphasize something that Rita ended with, which is that we all have a role to play here. It's not just people like yourself, but you inspire us and you inspire people who are following us on our Facebook Live program. As you spoke to them, our viewers, our community, actually, share with us your stories of how you have championed human rights, how you have stood up against racism, and helped to inspire us and your friends about the important work that we do to build a world that is built on peace, on tolerance, on diversity. I'm George Papagiannis. I've been here with Dr. Rita Ichak-Ndai, and I want to wish you all, wherever you are, a peaceful day. Here are the hashtags. Be part of the conversation. Be part of what makes a better world. Thank you so much.